On July 4th, 1187, an army of 20,000 men marches into the desolate hills of Galilee. Hours later, it vanishes. They are not simply defeated, they are erased from the map of the living. An entire kingdom, built over 88 years of blood, faith, and conquest, is dismantled in a single, brutal afternoon. This is the story of what happened in those few hours of hellfire and sun. It is a story history prefers to tell in terms of tactics and numbers, but the truth is far darker. It is a story of a battle that was never meant to be a battle at all. It was a calculated execution, a trap designed months in advance, built not of walls and ditches, but of heat, thirst, and fear. What really happened on that day has been obscured, buried beneath chronicles written by the victors and the vanquished. But the desert remembers, and it is beginning to give up its secrets. The story begins not with the clash of swords, but with the quiet decay of a kingdom, a house of cards waiting for a single breath to blow it all down. By the late 12th century, the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem is a Frankish island in a rising sea of Islamic unity. For decades, it has survived through military prowess and, more importantly, because its enemies were divided. But that is changing. A Kurdish warrior, the Sultan Salah al-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, known to the West as Saladin, is achieving the one thing the Crusaders have always feared. He is uniting the Muslim world. From Cairo to Damascus, city after city falls under his banner, forging a single empire with a shared purpose, a holy war, a jihad, to reclaim Jerusalem. Inside the Christian kingdom, a different kind of rot has set in. The court is a viper's nest of ambition and rivalry. At its heart sits a tragic king, Baldwin IV, his body consumed by leprosy, his authority fading with his sight. Into this power vacuum step the men who will seal the kingdom's fate. The new king, Guy de Lusignan, a man whose ambition is matched only by his weakness, and Reynald de Chatillon, a lord of pure pathological chaos. Opposing them is Raymond of Tripoli, a pragmatist who understands the suicidal folly of a direct war with Saladin. He pleads for caution. He is ignored. And watching them all, with an intelligence network that penetrates the deepest secrets of their courts, is Saladin. He knows their pride, their greed, their fear of appearing weak. He knows this kingdom is not a fortress of stone, but a fragile vessel of glass. All he needs is the perfect excuse to shatter it. In late 1186, a fragile truce holds the land in a tense peace. Vital caravans, the lifeblood of the desert, move freely. But peace is not in Reynald de Chatillon's nature. From his desert fortress of Kerak, he watches a massive, wealthy caravan travel north from Cairo, protected by the treaty. It is too tempting a prize. Ignoring the oath his king has sworn, Reynald falls upon it, seizing its goods and imprisoning its people. It is more than a raid. It is a direct insult to Saladin himself. When the Sultan's envoys demand restitution, King Guy fails his first and final test of leadership. He asks Reynald to return the plunder. Reynald refuses. And the king, too weak to enforce his own command, does nothing. For Saladin, this is the final provocation. He now has the legal and moral justification for the war he has spent a decade preparing. He swears a public oath. He will kill Reynald de Chatillon with his own hands. The die is cast. The great lords of the kingdom, even the cautious Raymond, are forced to rally to King Guy's banner. The entire military might of Outremer begins to assemble for a war they cannot win. Saladin's genius is not in winning battles, but in choosing where they are fought. He knows a direct assault on the Crusaders' mighty castles would be a long and bloody affair. Instead, he devises a plan to lure their entire army out into the open, away from its fortresses, and more importantly, away from its water. The bait is the city of Tiberias, on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. It is not a vital military target, but it belongs to Raymond of Tripoli, and inside its walls is Raymond's wife. This is not a siege, it is psychological warfare, an attack on one man's honor designed to force a crisis in the Crusader command. The Crusader army, the largest the kingdom has ever fielded, gathers at the springs of Sephoria, a perfect defensive position with abundant water and pasture. Logic demands they stay put. On the night of July 2nd, in a fateful war council, Raymond himself makes a desperate plea for reason. Let Tiberias fall, he begs the king. He argues his lands and his wife are a painful but necessary sacrifice for the survival of the kingdom. To march is to walk into a trap. But pride and arrogance are louder than reason. The Grand Master of the Templars and Reynald de Chatillon accuse Raymond of cowardice. They appeal to King Guy's deepest insecurity, his fear of appearing weak. For a moment, logic prevails, and Guy agrees to stay. But later that night, in the privacy of the king's tent, the warhawks whisper their poison. Guy de Lusignan reverses his decision. He gives the order to march. The moment that command is given, the battle is already lost. At dawn, they will meet their fate. As the sun breaks on July 3rd, the army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem begins its march from the life-giving springs. 20,000 men, 1,200 of them heavily armored knights, the mailed fist of Christendom, march under the weight of their most sacred relic, a piece of the true cross. The moment they leave Sephoria, Saladin's trap closes. His plan is a masterpiece of environmental warfare. The land itself is the first weapon, a parched, waterless plateau under a relentless July sun. The European knights, encased in layers of steel and leather, begin to cook alive in their armor. Then comes the second weapon, harassment. Saladin's light cavalry, swift and untouchable, swarm the Crusader flanks. Horse archers ride in, unleash a volley of arrows that thins the ranks and shreds their nerves, then retreat before the heavy knights can respond. The march slows to a crawl. But the third and most terrible weapon is thirst. The water they carry is quickly gone. Men's tongues swell in their mouths. Soldiers, delirious from the heat, collapse along the road, their bodies left where they fall. In the distance, they can see the shimmering blue of the Sea of Galilee, a vision of paradise. But Saladin expertly keeps his main force between the Crusaders and the lake, dangling the promise of salvation just out of their reach. By midday, it is clear they will never reach Tiberias. They change course, aiming for a smaller set of springs near a two-peaked hill. But Saladin has anticipated this too. His forces block the path, forcing the exhausted, dying army to make a dry camp on a desolate plain, completely surrounded. As night falls, the true horror of their situation descends. While Saladin's army enjoys a constant supply of water brought up from the lake by camel, the Crusaders have nothing. They lie in the dark, listening to the sounds of the Muslim camp, the murmur of prayers, the stamping of horses, the sharpening of steel. An eyewitness in their camp would later write that on that night there flowed more blood than water. The morning of Saturday, July 4th, dawns not with hope, but with fire. As the sun rises, Saladin unleashes his final attack. His men set fire to the dry grass and scrub surrounding the Crusader camp. Driven by the wind, thick, acrid smoke billows into their lines, a choking shroud that stings their eyes and sears their lungs. It is the perfect storm of heat, thirst, smoke, and terror. The Crusader army disintegrates. The infantry, driven mad by a thirst that eclipses all fear and discipline, breaks ranks. Thousands make a suicidal rush toward the distant, mocking image of the lake. They are isolated and slaughtered. Seeing the chaos, Raymond of Tripoli leads a desperate charge. In a move debated by historians for centuries, the Muslim line simply opens, allowing Raymond and his knights to ride through and escape the battlefield. A final act of treachery or a calculated decision by Saladin's commanders to let an experienced leader flee rather than die a martyr. The reason is lost to history, but the result is clear. The heart of the army is now utterly alone. The remaining knights, the pride of the kingdom, make their last stand on the slopes of the hill known as the Horns of Hattin. Around the king's red tent and the holy relic of the cross, they fight with the courage of despair. But courage is no match for a body starved of water. In their final agony, some knights are seen to slit the throats of their own war horses, drinking the hot blood in a last, desperate bid for life. It is the ultimate degradation, the end of chivalry. Saladin's own son, watching from a distance, sees the Frankish knights charge again and again, pushing back his father's own bodyguard. But they cannot sustain it. Their final charge falters. The Muslim army surges forward, overwhelming the last pocket of resistance. The king's red tent is overrun. The true cross is captured, its golden form held aloft, then paraded upside down before the broken army. The battle is over. The most powerful army the Kingdom of Jerusalem had ever fielded has ceased to exist. In the silence that follows, King Guy and the arrogant Reynald de Chatillon are brought as prisoners to Saladin's tent. The Sultan, seeing the king's extreme thirst, offers him a goblet of iced rosewater, a traditional Arab sign that a prisoner's life will be spared. Guy drinks deeply, then passes the goblet to Reynald. Saladin's demeanor changes instantly. He speaks to his interpreter, his voice cold as steel. "Tell the king, it is you who have given him to drink, not I." His mercy does not extend to the oathbreaker. He confronts Reynald, listing his crimes, his broken truces, his piracy. When Reynald answers with defiance, Saladin stands, draws his sword, and strikes him down, fulfilling the vow he had made months before. King Guy is spared, a valuable pawn to be ransomed, but for the Knights of the military orders, the Templars and Hospitallers, there will be no ransom. Saladin views them as fanatics, the ideological heart of the Crusader state, too dangerous to ever be set free. Some 200 are led out and executed, their deaths a calculated act to permanently cripple the kingdom's professional military corps. For centuries, this story has been told through chronicles, but today, the land itself bears witness. While mass graves from the battle remain elusive, archaeologists at nearby Crusader sites like Jacob's Ford have unearthed the grim physical proof of the era's violence, skeletons bearing the marks of brutal sword wounds. More recent landscape archaeology around Hattin reveals how ancient field systems and Roman roads may have been used by Saladin to channel the Crusader army into the heart of his trap, restricting their movement. The stones themselves are beginning to confirm what the chronicles only hinted at. This was no chance encounter. It was a perfectly engineered killing ground. The consequences of this single day are absolute. With its army annihilated, the kingdom of Jerusalem is defenseless. It has no one left to man its walls. Saladin sweeps through the Holy Land like a storm. One by one, the great Crusader cities and castles fall: Acre, Jaffa, Beirut, Ascalon. In most, the garrisons had been wiped out on that fateful July day. Within 3 months, on October 2nd, 1187, Saladin stands before the walls of Jerusalem itself. The city is filled with terrified refugees, but has only a handful of defenders. Balian of Ibelin, one of the few lords to escape Hattin, negotiates a surrender. In a stunning act of clemency that stands in stark contrast to the Crusader massacre in that same city 88 years earlier, Saladin spares the population, allowing most to ransom their freedom. He wins not only the military war, but the moral one as well. The news of Hattin and the fall of Jerusalem sends a shockwave across Christendom. The chronicler Ernul claims that Pope Urban III died of grief upon hearing of the defeat. While the timing is debated by modern historians, the legend itself reveals the profound trauma of the loss. That trauma ignites a firestorm. It triggers the Third Crusade, a massive global response that will bring the great kings of Europe, Richard the Lionheart of England, Philip Augustus of France, and the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa to the shores of the Holy Land to try and reclaim what was lost. The Battle of Hattin was never just a fight over a piece of land. It was the calculated demolition of a kingdom, a masterpiece of strategy that proved a single day and a single moment of fatal arrogance can change the course of history forever. If you believe history still hides its greatest truths, subscribe and join us for the next untold story.